You had a class before this? Okay, I'll start the class. See
Yes, sir.
why we're using steels in shipbuilding is we'll look at the advantages of using steels in shipbuilding. So if we take the advantages, first advantage is the cost of the steel is very less. Cost of the raw material and the cost for processing the steel both are very less. This is because steel is used in many industries. The usage of steel is very much, and the production of steel, the amount of production is also very high, so the cost will be obviously less. It is available in plenty, and the production rate is also very high, so the cost is very less, and it is available in plenty. Okay, uh, it is available in abundance. Second advantage is it is easy to fabricate. If you want to make a product, if you want to make a car, if you want to make a bus, if you want to make any product out of steel, it is easy to make it. Okay, using some fabrication techniques like welding or by riveting or whatever it is. So it is easy to make a product. Ease of fabrication. Ease of fabrication. This is the second advantage of using steel. Third advantage, it has moderately good mechanical properties. Mechanical properties in the sense we speak about the strength, we speak about the corrosion resistance, we speak about the notch toughness. So these are the mechanical properties, ductility, all this. These are mechanical properties, physical properties. Okay. So steel is having some, at least some medium, moderate mechanical properties. So these are the advantages of using steel. What are the disadvantages of using steel? So if you are using steel in the shipbuilding for construction of ships, what are the disadvantages? Disadvantages, it is more prone to corrosion. Okay, it is more prone to corrosion, and compared to aluminum and composites, if you're taking an equal strength aluminum and equal strength composite, the weight of steel will be very high. That means for an equal strength, the weight is more. So you call this as I um, weight to strength ratio. I weight to strength ratio. If you take aluminum and composites, they are having low weight to strength ratio. For the same strength, the weight is less for a composite and aluminum. For the steel, it is very high. Okay, so this is the two disadvantages of using steel. Make note of it. Written. Can I rub this? Can I rub this?
Yes, sir.
What are the advantages? The price of steel is very less compared to aluminum and composites, and it is easy to make a product out of steel. All the manufacturing techniques are very suitable for the steel material. And third point is the steel is having good strength, and other properties also moderate. Okay, the corrosion properties, all these are moderate. Disadvantages: it is more prone to corrosion because the ship is going to always work in seawater. The ship is going to be always in contact with the seawater, so steel is going to get readily corroded. Okay, so we are going to do something for this to avoid the corrosion, but as a pure steel, it is more prone to corrosion. Then for a same strength, the weight of steel is greater than that of aluminum and composites. So I weight to strength ratio. So that is why this is the main disadvantage why steel is not used in high speed craft, high speed ships. Like if you are designing a navy ship, like an interceptor boat or offshore patrol vessel, when you want to go at a speed of like 35 knots, 40 knots, steel is not an apt material. You should go for either aluminum or composites. Okay. Next, okay, do you remember you have studied in chemistry? Do you remember how you are making steel? What are the process by which you make steel? You use either open earth process, or you use electric furnace. So this is the process by which you bring the iron ore from the mine and you take to the furnace and you produce steel. Okay, so you can go and refer your chemistry books for this. So in this electric furnace, there are two types: arc furnace and high frequency induction furnace. Then the oxygen process. Last one is the oxygen process, and we have many other types also, but in the shipbuilding we are using only these three. Okay. So now what you need to understand is the property of the steel. See, there are many grades of steels. There are many grades of steels. If you take the normal strength steel, there is A, B, C, D, E. These are different grades of steels. And if you take high strength steel, you have AH, you have DH, EH, FH. And if you take the steels for warships, there are different grades. These different grades of steels, they have different mechanical properties. Okay, so all these grades of steels, they have different mechanical properties. Now, can you see the board? Now all these have different mechanical properties. See, these steels, they are got from the iron ore, and this steel is made, And how we are getting these different mechanical properties is by some process. Okay, once we melt the steel in the furnace, we add some additives, and after that we do some thermochemical processes like heating and cooling, so that we get different mechanical properties. We are going to see this one. Okay, so these are three processes mainly used for shipbuilding steels, for producing steel from iron ore. And you need to understand that there are different grades of steels. Some steels will have very less strength, some steels will have very greater strength, some steels will have good corrosion property. Like if you take stainless steel, if you take stainless steels, they have very good corrosion properties, but strength is very less. If you take EH and FH, their tensile strength is very good, but they are more prone to corrosion. So in the ship, we are going to use these different grades of steels at many places, and you need to know how these different grades of steels are obtained from a normal steel. Okay, from a cast steel, how these different grades of steels is obtained. So we look at the process in like little bit brief. I've written this. Write this. Make note of it. Can I rub this? This is high frequency induction furnace. Okay. These are grades of normal strength steel. These are grades of high tensile steel. Then you have stainless steels. Then you have steels for warship also. If you take the warships, they use QT28 series. QT28. So that is a type of steel they use for warships. Can I have this? Someone unmute and reply. Hello. Unmute. Okay. Next we'll see the factors which affect the properties and quality of steels. The mechanical properties, the corrosion property, the fatigue toughness, the low temperature toughness, all that. Okay. The factors which affect quality of steel produced. Okay. Quality of steels. Chemical composition. Chemical composition. In this, what you need to understand, see, normally to increase the strength of steel, what we do is we add a little bit of carbon and little bit of manganese. And if you're increasing the carbon content, the strength of steel will increase. See, when you're heating the steel in the furnace, when recrystallization is taking place, we add some chemical additives, like we add some metals, like some additions, like you add carbon, you add manganese, you add chromium, nickel for stainless steels, you add titanium, aluminum, palladium for high strength steels. So the property of steel depends on these chemical additives and the heat treatment what you're going to do. Okay, so when you're adding carbon, what happens? The strength of steel will increase. When you're adding carbon, the strength of steel will increase. But what happens when the carbon content increases? When carbon content increases, the weldability will decrease. It is very difficult to weld the steel. When you're welding a steel with high carbon content, what happens inside? inside the weld there is lot of impurities. The metallurgy of weld will change, and it when the ship is in high stress region, cracks will start developing from the weld. So when you're increasing the carbon content, the strength of steel will increase, but the weldability will decrease. Try to understand this. Strength of steel will increase when you're increasing the carbon content, but the weldability, the property of weld will decrease, and the failure will start taking place at the weld. And when increasing the carbon content, the corrosion behavior of the steel will also increase. The steel is more prone to corrosion when carbon content is more. Similarly, when you are doing uh, when you are making steel in the furnace, you should do the desulfurization process, because when the sulfur content and phosphorus content is more in the steel, it is more prone to corrosion. Okay, sulfur content and phosphorus content. When the sulfur content and phosphorus content is more in the steel, okay, then again it is more prone to corrosion, and weldability also decreases. So these three should be kept in a limit. But for high strength steel, we try to increase the carbon to range of like 0.22 percentage. Okay, this percentage of carbon you see in high tensile steel. Okay, so this is all about composition. The mechanical properties of steel depends on the chemical additives you add. The number 2 point, the melting practice. Melting practice. See, don't think that the metallurgy of the process of making a metal, the process of making steel or any other metal is that easy. It is a very difficult process. You may know that, suppose you take a steel, you may know that steel is around 90 percentage. Okay, steel is around 90 percentage. Then carbon is around 0.3 percentage. Then chromium is around 2 percentage. You may know the percentage of the minerals present in this, but it is a process by which you make this, that will be kept a secret, and the process is very important to get the desired quality. I'll give some examples. In India, we could not even till now we could not make material for gas turbine blades. We could not make for gas turbine blades, but we know the chemical composition. But it all depends on how you heat it, at what temperature you cool it, the process. Okay, the process we don't know till now. We don't know the process, so we are importing the gas turbine blades from abroad. Okay, even steel, some very high strength steel, we don't know the process how to make it. We know that what is the chemical content, we know what is the chromium content, we know what is a carbon content, we know manganese content, we know silicon content, we know the chemical composition, but we don't know the process. So the melting process, the melting practice and the cooling practice is very important. Fine. The number 3 is like the special processing, like desulfurization to remove the sulfur, to remove the phosphorus. I told you the sulfur and phosphorus content, they decrease the weldability and decrease the corrosion. Okay, so special processing. Example, desulfurization. Okay. Hello, reply. Hello, listening. Hello.
Yes, sir.
You can keep your voice on. There is no
Okay,
noise
sir.
in the background, right? You can keep your voice on. Keep replying to me.
Okay, sir.
Be interested.
Okay, sir.
See, try to understand. If you want to increase the strength of steel, there are two options. If you want to increase the strength of steel, if you want to, strength means we are speaking about the ultimate stress value, the yield stress value. Okay, and if you want to increase the strength, what you can do is you can increase the carbon content. You can increase the carbon content during the recrystallization stage. You can increase the carbon content, or else what you can do, you can reduce the grain size. You can reduce the grain size, and you can add some additives, chemical additives. By simply increasing the carbon content, the strength of steel is going to increase. I repeat, by simply increasing the strength of the percentage of carbon in the steel, the strength of steel is going to increase. But if you're increasing the percentage of carbon, what happens? I told you already. By increasing the percentage of carbon, what happens? What happens to the weldability? Weldability reduces. You cannot weld that steel that easily. When you are welding it, the metallurgy of weld will change, and cracks will start developing in that weld when the ship is in operation. Second option is what? How to increase strength of steel? How to increase strength of steel? By reducing grain size. By reducing grain size means what you do when you are heating the steel in the furnace. When you are heating the steel in the furnace, the grain size will reduce. Then what you need to do? If you are allowing it to cool it very slowly, then the grain size is going to increase. So what you need to do is you need to cool it immediately. Okay, so you need to cool it immediately. So when you are cooling it immediately, then the grain size will be small, and when the recrystallization is taking place, when the metal is hot, you're going to add some chemical additives, like you're going to add chromium, nickel, you're going to add silicon, you're going to add a little bit of copper, aluminum, titanium, nibonium, all that, and you're going to increase the strength of steel. Fine. So which option you're going to go for? This steel, when you're increasing carbon content, it is very cheap. When you're increasing carbon content, it is very cheap. You're going to get very high strength steel. But what about the weldability? Weldability is very poor. And what about your corrosion properties? Corrosion properties is also very bad. Okay, and the steel will become like more brittle. Fine. But what about this option? The carbon content is kept very low, and you're increasing the content of the other minerals like titanium, aluminum, little bit of copper and all that. So what happens? Your strength is more, but there is no carbon content. So welding is very good in this steel. Welding is very good, and corrosion properties is also very good. So we are going to go for this kind of steel. We are going to go for this kind of steel. Okay. Someone please explain this. What I told you can explain. Deep Sharma, explain this. What I told just now. Deep Sharma. Hello. Karthik. Karthik. Are you in the lecture? Karthik. Who can explain? Prajin, Kavi. Who can explain? See, try to understand. I'll repeat again. Normally, by converting a cast iron into steel, the steel will have a normal properties. Like the yield strength will be around say 350 megapascals. Okay, the ultimate strength will be this much. There will be some properties. When you are increasing the strength of a steel, what is advantage? What is the necessity to increase the strength of steel? First, try to understand this point. Why we need to increase the strength of steel? If you are increasing the strength of steel, then the thickness of the plating we can decrease. If you are increasing the strength of the steel, then the thickness of plating can decrease. If the thickness of plating, the ship plating decreases, what will happen to weight of ship? Weight of ship will decrease. If weight of the steel decreases, we can carry more cargo. The cost of the price of ship will decrease. So that is advantage why we are increasing strength of steel. I'll repeat again. If you are increasing the strength of steel, normal steel to high tensile steel by all this process, what is the advantage? You are reducing the material. You are reducing the material cost and you are reducing the weight of the ship. One more advantage is if the ship is going to high stressful environment, say the ship is going to South China Sea or North Sea where the wave height is very high, the wave forces are greater, there will be a lot of forces acting on the ship. It will try to break the ship into two pieces. So in those conditions, if the strength of steel is very good, very high, it can resist all those deformations and the ship can be safe. It can come back to the port safely. Understood? So high strength means what? It can withstand a greater force. It can withstand a greater external force. If some external force is trying to deform the ship means like changing the shape and changing the length and breadth. So that time, if the material is having good strength, it can withstand that deformations. Fine. So that is a necessity for us to increase the strength of steel. Now, how to increase the strength of steel? First option is simple option is by increasing the carbon content. When you are increasing the carbon content, the strength of steel will increase. What is the second option? What is the second option? Second option is
Reduce.
you have to reduce the grain size. How to reduce the
Reduce.
grain size? When you're heating the steel in the furnace, when recrystallization is taking place, the grain size will decrease. You have to cool that steel immediately. To keep the same grain size, you have to cool it immediately. And before cooling down, you can add some chemical additives, so that will go and mix with the steel. Okay, those chemical additives, if you want stainless steel, you can add chromium and nickel. If you want high tensile steel, you can add aluminum, titanium, nibonium, vanadium. You can add all that for getting high strength steel. Okay, so this is the process. So if we are going by carbon option, if the percentage of carbon is more in the steel, what happens to the weldability means the ease of welding, the ease of joining two plates by welding. What will happen to that weldability decreases. That means it is very difficult to weld a steel plate with high carbon content. You can weld it, but when the steel is in service, it is going to break easily. And a steel with high carbon content is more prone to corrosion. So which option we are going to go for? We are going to go for this option. We are going to keep the carbon content in some limit, and we are going to reduce the grain size, and we are going to follow some thermal process. Thermal process means like heating and cooling for achieving this, and we are going to add some extra minerals. Okay, we are going to add some extra chemical additives during the recrystallization process to get high tensile steel. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you noted on this?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
The next point is grain refining. Grain refining. Then the rolling procedure. From the furnace, the steel is taken out as ingots, and they're rolled. Okay, they rolled in the rollers. You have seen some videos. The type of heat treatment. See the different grades of steels, the price of different grades of steels is different. If you go for high tensile steel, the price of high tensile steel is like nearly 2 times the normal mild steel, because they're going to do all this. They're going to go for heat treatment. So for heat treatment, what you need to do? You need to spend some energy. For heating the metal, you need to heat the furnace. You need to spend a lot of fuel for heating the furnace. Then you have to add some chemical additives. Chemical additives you have to buy. The chromium, nickel, titanium, all these are costlier than steel. So when you are adding all those costly metals, then the price of steel will increase. You know normally, right? Stainless steel is costlier than mild steel. You may be knowing that. Then grain refining, again for recrystallization, you need to heat in the furnace, so the price of steel will increase. Do you know about the heat treatment procedures? Do you remember the heat treatment procedures? Any of this? annealing, normalizing, quenching, tempering, then stress relieving. These are different types of heat treatments. So what we do is, in annealing process we heat the steel to around 850 to 950 degrees Celsius. Then we slow it very slowly. We cool it very slowly, so that what happens is all the stress in the steel will get released and the steel will become very soft. In normalizing process, what we are going to do, we are going to heat the steel again to the same kind of temperature, and we are going to cool it very faster, so that we are going to retain the grain size. First, what we are going to do? First step is what? We are going to heat the steel. We are going to heat the steel to say some 850 to 950 degrees Celsius. Then we have what happens at the temperature? The grain size will be small. Grain size will be small. Then we are going to cool it immediately. Okay, cool it immediately, so that the grain size is retained. Grain size is retained. Understood? So this normalizing process, the cooling is done by keeping in open air. But in quenching, the same process, quenching, the cooling process is more rapid. What you are going to do, we are going to cool it in, this cooling is done in open air, but in quenching process, we are going to cool it in either oil or water. So the cooling process is more rapid. That means we are going to get still higher strength steel. It depends, the strength of steel depends on the cooling rate. If the cooling rate is very rapid, then the strength of steel is going to be greater. Okay, remember like this. Fine. So this is about the heat treatment. If someone asks you how the shipbuilding steel is made, you can tell all the three process: auction process, open earth process, then electric furnace process. Then if someone asks you about what is heat treatment, why they are doing the heat treatment, you can answer this. To reduce the grain size, we are doing heat treatment. If you are reducing the grain size, then the strength of steel will increase. You can tell this to them. Any doubt? Karthik, I could not hear you. Send a message. I cannot hear you. Send a message.
Explain one time, sir.
No, I cannot hear you. Send a message. Explain one more. Okay. See, before the heat treatment, the steel will have some internal stresses. First, what you need to do is you need to relieve the internal stresses. So, what you do, you increase the temperature of steel to 850 to 950 degrees Celsius. Then you allow it to cool inside the furnace. You allow it to cool very slowly. So, what happens is the internal stresses will get relieved and the steel will become soft. So, this process is to make the steel softer. First, what we are going to do, we are going to heat it, then we are going to allow it to cool very slowly, so that the internal stresses gets relieved and the steel becomes softer. Then we can go for normalizing process or quenching process. So what we can do in that is, if you take normalizing process, we are going to heat the steel. Say we are going to heat the steel to 900 degrees Celsius in a furnace. During this at this temperature, what happens? The steel material will undergo recrystallization, and the grain size will be small. During recrystallization, the grain size will be small. What you can do, if you want to add some chemical additives like other metals like aluminum, chromium, nickel, you can add in the stage. or else what you can do, you can cool it. So in normalizing process, what we are doing, we are keeping this molten steel. Uh, See, when we take out of the furnace, we take little bit molten, little bit in a solid form, and we allow that to cool in air. In normalizing process, we are cooling it in open air. So the cooling process is not that rapid; it slows down slowly. Okay. In quenching process, what we are going to do, we are going to take that metal and we are going to cool in water or oil. So what happens? The cooling process is very rapid. Cooling process is very rapid. By that, what we are going to get? We are going to get high strength steel. We are going to get high strength steel, and we are going to retain. This high strength steel is got by what? We are retaining the grain size. Retaining the grain size. See, recrystallization process. What happens? The grain size will decrease. When you are cooling rapidly, the small grain size will remain same. We are retaining the grain size. Okay, and tempering process is similar to annealing. After making the steel, again you have to heat to some 650 degrees Celsius, then cool it slowly so that the internal stresses are relieved after processing. After processing the steel, after doing heat treatment, if there is some internal stresses, to relieve that, we do tempering process. Understood? Okay now?
Yes, sir.
So we'll start with carbon manganese steels or low alloy steels. Carbon manganese steels. See, in this hardly we are going to have steel, we are going to have steel, we are going to have carbon, we are going to have little bit of manganese, then we are going to have little bit of silicon. Okay, that too in utensil steel we are going to have silicon. The rest everything will not be there. Like this is like we can tell the normal mild steel or low strength steel. You will not find any other micro alloying elements. Micro alloying elements means like titanium, aluminum, vanadium. So you will not find all this. You will find only steel, carbon, and manganese. Okay. So this is low strength steel, or you can tell low alloy steel or carbon manganese steels. Fine. So if you look at the typical carbon content, if you look at the typical carbon content, it will be 0.12 to 0.22 percentage. Typical carbon content, it will be 0.12 to 0.22 percentage. Fine. And if you look at the typical manganese content, it will be 0.5 to 1.5 percentage. Fine. So there is no other micro alloying elements. There is no titanium. There is no chromium, nickel. Nothing is there. Only this percent. Okay. And these steels are usually not heat treated. They are not usually heat treated. Strength is very less, and the grain structure is ferrite perlite. Okay. The perlite phase increases with carbon content. That means this steel is having more carbon content. Fine. So next we'll go to we'll see about, in this there are two types of steels. One is normal strength and one is high strength. So we'll look at the properties of normal strength steel. So we have seen the range, but we'll see what is a constituents in present in normal strength and high strength. Normal strength steel. Okay, the carbon content, normal strength steel, these are like you can tell mild steel, and there are different grades of steels in this. There are different grades like A, B, C, D, E. Okay, A, C, D, E you can find in DNV. There is one classification society called DNV. They given guideline. When you are constructing a ship, you should use this grades of steel for this type of ship, and for this areas of ship, you should use this grades of steel. Suppose you take a ship, different parts of the ship are going to experience different kind of stresses. Okay, for deck plating, a DNV will tell use E grade. Then for some internal bulkheads, DNV will tell you can use A grade. So it depends on which part of the ship, which grade of steel. All these guidelines will be given by the classification society. So in the normal strength steel, there are different grades A, B, C, D, E, and if you take ABS classification, you have B also. Fine. The classification society will give a guideline how to make a ship from cast iron, how to add the chemical additives, and what type of steel you should use in the which part of the ship. So they'll give all these guidelines to you. You have to simply follow these guidelines while constructing a ship. Now, coming to the carbon content of this, carbon content maximum 0.1 percentage, maximum, and for rolled sections it is 0.23, and for grade E, this is for ACD. Okay, this is for ACD. For E grade it is 0.18 percentage maximum. Fine. And the manganese content, manganese content is 0.6 percentage minimum, and the silicon content 0.5 percentage for A, 0.35 percentage for grade B and D, then 0.10, 0.3235 for grade E. Okay, make note of it. Make note of it. Completed. See, when you're determining the composition of the microalloying elements, like the percentage of carbon, the percentage of manganese, silicon, you should be aware of something called the carbon equivalent. The carbon equivalent. So this factor, weldability depends on this. This carbon equivalent should be less than 0.4 for good welding. Okay, and the formula for your normal strength steel is carbon equivalent is equal to C plus C is percentage of carbon plus percentage of manganese by 6. So this should be less than 0.4, then only you can weld the steel. The welding will be good. If it is greater than 4, then the welding property is going to be very poor. So you should make sure that the carbon equivalent is always less than 0.4. And if you look at the, I give some examples for if you take the grade A of steel, Dengs yield stress. The yield stress value is 235 megapascal. Then the elongation, how much it can elongate. When there is a tensile deformation, how much it can elongate, that is 22%. Okay, so these are the physical properties of grade A steel. So what is yield strength? So up to this, when this much stress is acting on the material, it is still in the elastic zone. So after that, it is going to enter into the ductility is going to be lost, and it is going to enter into the fracture mode. It can fail. It can fail at any point. Okay. Like this, remember this carbon equivalent. When you are studying welding, also will reverse this carbon equivalent. Next, coming to the high strength steel. High strength steel. If you take the carbon content, see high strength steel simple. We are adding something extra. We are going to add titanium. We are going to add nivonium. We are going to add vanadium. Okay, and their percentage should not exceed 0.12 percentage. The total percentage should not exceed 0.12 percentage. Okay, and if you look at the typical content, the carbon content will be 0.18 percentage maximum. Manganese will be 0.9 to 1.6 percentage maximum. Then these are the grain refining elements. Okay, you can add a little bit aluminum also for grain refining. And if you take the other alloying elements, there will be a little bit of copper, maximum 0.35 percentage, chromium 0.2 percentage maximum, then nickel 0.4 percentage maximum, then this is 0.08 molybdenum. Okay. Write down this. And for high strength steel, the carbon equivalent formula is this. Carbon equivalent is carbon percentage plus manganese percentage by 6 plus chromium. This should be less than 0.4 percentage. 0.4. Okay. Completed. There is nothing to understand in this. When you are making the steel, you have to add the micro alloying elements in this composition. Then you are going to get a particular strength. Simple. And you need to memorize these values. Clear? Can I go to the application part? Side of this. Now, if you take the different marine structures, we have ships, we have offshore structures. Okay, we have offshore structures. Ships also, we have navy ships and merchant ships. Then offshore structure means like rig. offshore rig, okay, for oil exploration. Then we have submarines which work below the surface of water. See, for all this, the operating condition is different. If you take ships, ship is going to move in the water. Ship is going to move in the water, and the loading the ship experience is different. If you take offshore structures, it is static. The offshore structure is static. It is going to stay in the same place. So suppose this is the offshore structure. This is the offshore structure. It is going to stay in the same place, and the waves are going to come and eat this offshore structure. So what happens? This offshore structure is more prone to wave loads. It is more prone to wave loads. So when you're selecting material, you should select the material based on what kind of loading the structure will experience. If you take ships, you can either go for mild steel, you can go for normal strength mild steel, or you can go for high tensile steel. You can go for high tensile steel. So what happens is, if you are using mild steel, the thickness will be more. Thickness will be greater because strength is less, so thickness should be greater. Thickness is more, here thickness is less. Try to understand, if thickness is more, then the stiffness is greater. If thickness is greater, stiffness of the structure is great. So when you are applying a force, it won't bend easily. The deflection will be less. If thickness is great, stiffness is more. If the plate is having larger thickness, then stiffness is greater. That means deflection is less. Deflection is less. So if you are using a mild ship which you are constructing using mild steel, the deflection is very less. If you are using high tensile steel, thickness is less because it is giving more strength. So we can reduce the thickness. Thickness is less. That means stiffness is less. Deflection is more. So what we understand from this is, when you are using high tensile steel, the thickness will decrease. You can reduce the thickness, the weight of ship will decrease, but the ship will deflect more, it will bend more. Okay, but if you are using mild steel, thickness is more, that means the weight of ship is greater, but the deflection is very less. Understood? So you cannot use the high tensile steel throughout the ship. That is not possible, because whatever gain we are getting by reducing the weight, we have to again use it for reducing the deflection, for increasing the stiffness. Fine. So in some places we use high tensile steel, some places we go for mild steel. In ships, deflection is the main parameter. Okay. And in offshore structures are more prone to wave loads. That means wave loads means cyclic loads. Because of cyclic loads, there is some failure called fatigue. Fatigue will take place because of cyclic loads. To avoid fatigue loads, there is no need for high tensile steel, because fatigue loads will mostly take place in the weld. Fatigue loads will take place mostly in the weld region. The weld property of high tensile steel as well as mild steel is mostly same. So there is no advantage of using high tensile steel in offshore structure. If you are using high tensile steel in offshore structure, the cost will increase. So we can go for mild steel in offshore structures. In ships, in some part of the ship like deck, bottom, midship region, we can go for high tensile steel, where the geometry is abruptly changing, where there is stress concentration, you can go for high tensile steel. Remaining part of the ship you can go for mild steels. But in offshore structures, it is more prone to wave loads. It is static, it is not moving in water, it is static, it is more prone to wave loads, cyclic loads. That wave loads means cyclic loads. So it is more prone to fatigue deformation, and this fatigue deformation is not going to take place in the steel plates. It is going to first start in the weld region, okay. And the weld property of mild steel and high tensile steel is mostly same, so there is no need for using high tensile steel, because that is costlier than the mild steel. Understood? And if you take submarines, what about submarines? Coming to the submarines are deeply submerged. If you take before 60-70 years, submarines can dive up to 100 meters. Now submarines can dive up to 300-400 meters, and submarine is more prone to the pressure load. Submarine is more prone to the pressure load. See, when the submarine is submerging, there is some air inside the submarine that is having atmospheric pressure. The air inside the submarine is cylindrical in shape. Okay, I am drawing the cross section. This is pressure of atmospheric air inside the submarine, and outside when the submarine is submerged, say the depth of immersion is like 400 meters. What is hydrostatic pressure? Rho gh. Okay, rho g into 400. H becomes 400. So the hydrostatic pressure acting from outside is very large. This will try to compress the submarine shell. It will try to compress the submarine shell. Okay, and the shell should be able to withstand. It behaves like a pressure vessel. The shell should be able to withstand that huge hydrostatic pressure. Fine. So for submarines, what we have to do is we have to use high strength steel. We have to use high strength steel. The steel with very high Young's modulus. See, normal ships, there is no need to have strength above 340 megapascals. But submarines, they are using till 590 megapascals. They are using grades of steels with Young's modulus of 590 megapascal in modern submarines. Okay, so this is the application of steels. Tomorrow we'll have a discussion on stainless steels. Okay, stainless steels mostly for avoiding the corrosion we use. We'll have discussion what is the composition of stainless steel and what is the application of stainless steel tomorrow. We'll end the class today. Any doubt on this? Any doubt on this? Can anyone answer this? Why they are not using high strength steel in offshore structures? Rajin? Karthik? Can anyone explain why they are not using high tensile steel in offshore structures? Because of fatigue. Okay, because of fatigue, but fatigue is taking place in which part of the structure? In the steel plates or in the weld area? Where will the fatigue failure take place? In the weld region or in the steel? No, it takes place in the weld region. Okay, it takes place in the weld region. The weld property, see, when you are using mild steel, when you are constructing a offshore structure with mild steel, and when you are making an offshore structure with high tensile steel, both the weld property is same. The strength of the weld is same. So since this offshore structure is more prone to fatigue loads, it is not going to deflect like a ship. So we are designing the offshore structure for fatigue loads. There is no need for using high tensile steel. We can construct the offshore structure with mild steel only. And submarine is prone to which kind of loading? Which is the maximum load in the submarine? Which is the highest load in the submarine which you should design for? Hydrostatic loads. When the submarine is diving deeply into sea, like 300 meters, 400 meters below the surface of water, a huge hydrostatic pressure will act on the submarine shell. So that will try to compress the submarine. So submarine should have high yield strength. Strength of the steel plating should be large. So they are using till 590 megapascal. They are using grades like QT28 in the submarines, so that the strength is 590 megapascals. Fine. Okay, we'll end the class today. Thank you. Bye.